Marcus Ellison, a billionaire tired of shallow wealth, disguises himself as a janitor to understand real struggles. Injured one night, he's saved by Jada, a 12-year-old black girl living with her grandmother under threat of eviction. Inspired by her courage, Marcus bonds with her, but when their eviction looms, he reveals his true identity. At first betrayed, Jada learns he bought building, secured their home, and rebuilt the community. Years later, empowered by his kindness, Jada grows into a leader who helps others, proving that compassion and courage, not money, are the true measures of wealth. Marcus Ellison had everything: a skyline penthouse with glass walls that opened to the city, a fleet of cars he barely drove, and an empire of businesses that made him money even while he slept. Yet despite the wealth, he was restless. From the outside, he was a man people envied. Inside, he was tired of being protected, flattered, and told what he wanted to hear. He wanted to know what it felt like to live without a safety net, to stand on a sidewalk and not have people bow their heads just because his name was on the side of a skyscraper. That was why, on a crisp October morning, Marcus stood in front of a mirror in a tiny rental apartment, wearing thrift store jeans, a faded work shirt, and scuffed boots. His thick hair was hidden under a janitor's cap, and his hands had been rubbed with grease, so they looked calloused. To the world, Marcus Ellison had vanished. In his place was Mark Ellis, a middle-aged man looking for part-time work cleaning at a community center in the rougher part of the city. Nobody would suspect the billionaire who owned half the block was mopping its floors. The community center smelled of disinfectant and worn basketball shoes. Kids' voices echoed from the gym, sneakers squeaking on polished wood. Posters about after-school tutoring, free meals, and say no to violence curled at the edges on the walls. Marcus reported to Ms. Ramirez, the director, who barely looked up from her clipboard. "You're the new janitor? Name?" "Mark," he said, his voice gruff, lowered. "You're late." She shoved a bucket and mop toward him. "Bathroom's a mess. Welcome to the job." Marcus rolled up his sleeves, hid a smile, and got to work. By the end of the day, his back ached in ways he hadn't felt in years. The penthouse had a cleaning service. He hadn't touched a mop in decades. But here, nobody cared about his last name. They just saw a tired worker pushing a mop down tiled floors. And for the first time in years, he felt strangely alive. The accident happened 3 days later. It was raining, the kind of heavy downpour that made the streets smell like wet concrete. Marcus was hauling trash bags out the back door when the slick metal steps betrayed him. His boot slipped, and his weight carried him sideways. He tried to grab the railing, but the bag ripped, sending garbage spilling while he tumbled down 3 steps. A bolt of pain shot through his ankle. He gritted his teeth, but a groan escaped. "Hey, mister, you okay?" The voice was small but sharp. Marcus blinked through the rain and saw a girl standing at the corner of the alley. She couldn't have been more than 12. Her skin was deep brown, her braids tied back with blue beads that clicked when she moved. She wore an oversized hoodie and carried a plastic bag of groceries that looked too heavy for her thin arms. Marcus tried to push himself up but hissed when his ankle throbbed. The girl dropped her bag and hurried over. "Don't move it, you twisted it." She crouched beside him with a confidence that didn't match her age. "My grandma's a nurse. She showed me how to check stuff." Marcus chuckled, though his voice shook. "You sure you're not the nurse?" She grinned for half a second, then her face grew serious again. She helped him lean against the wall, then picked up one of the trash bags with a wrinkled nose. This is nasty, but I'll clean it up for you. You don't have to." "Yeah, I do. You helped at the center, right? You clean up after us kids. Least I can do is clean up after you." Her name was Jada Carter, and she lived 2 blocks away with her grandmother. Marcus learned this as she half-dragged, half-guided him inside the center and sat him down on a bench. She darted off, returning with a bag of ice from the cafeteria freezer. "You gotta put this on it." She pressed it against his ankle with surprising gentleness. "Hurts less." Marcus studied her. She was sharp, quick on her feet, and had the kind of kindness that wasn't taught in classrooms. He also noticed her hoodie had holes at the cuffs, and the grocery bag she carried had only a loaf of bread, milk, and a box of cereal. "Jada, right?" "Thank you," Marcus said. She shrugged like it was nothing. "You looked like you needed help." Her tone was matter of fact, but her eyes lingered on him, curious. Not suspicious, but searching, as if she wanted to know his story. That night, back in his small rental apartment, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about her. The city was full of people rushing past one another, but this girl had stopped in the rain to help a stranger. And she reminded him of something he had almost forgotten. That real strength wasn't in money, but in the heart. What Marcus didn't know yet was that Jada's world was about to crash even harder than his ankle, and that he would have to decide how far he'd go to help her, even if it meant revealing who he really was. The rain hadn't let up the next day. It hammered the city with a steady rhythm, washing grime from sidewalks into gutters. Marcus hobbled into the community center on a borrowed crutch, determined not to let a twisted ankle ruin his plan. Ms. Ramirez eyed him. "You sure you can work like that?" "Yeah," Marcus said, forcing a smile. "I'll manage." She raised a brow but didn't press. People in this neighborhood didn't ask many questions as long as you did the job. Jada appeared not long after, her braids damp from the storm. She carried her schoolbooks in a plastic bag instead of a backpack. "You shouldn't be walking on that ankle," she said matter-of-factly when she spotted him sweeping near the front desk. Marcus smirked. "And you shouldn't be bossing around adults." She grinned. "Some adults need it." Her wit cut through the dullness of the day. She plopped her books on the desk, sat on the floor, and started her homework while waiting for the gym to open. Marcus noticed she scribbled answers quickly but chewed her pencil whenever she got stuck. "What subject?" he asked, pausing with the broom. "Math." "Want some help?" Jada hesitated. "You any good at fractions?" Marcus chuckled. If only she knew how many billions he'd divided, multiplied, and invested over his lifetime. He crouched beside her, ignoring the protest from his ankle, and explained the problem in simple terms. Her eyes lit up with understanding. "That's actually easy the way you said it," she admitted. "You're sharper than you think," Marcus said. By the time her grandmother arrived to pick her up, Jada had finished all her homework. The woman was older, with tired eyes and a slow step, but she carried herself with dignity. She thanked Marcus for watching over Jada and introduced herself as Miss Lillian Carter. "You're the new janitor?" she asked, her voice polite but cautious. "Yes, ma'am. Mark Ellis," Marcus replied, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm. "Appreciate you keeping an eye on her. She's got a big heart, but sometimes forgets this world can be rough." Marcus nodded. He'd already seen enough to know she was right. Over the next week, he noticed things. Jada often arrived at the center hungry, tearing open snack bars like she hadn't eaten since morning. Her shoes were a size too small, toes pushing against worn fabric. She carried responsibility like an adult, running errands, helping her grandmother with groceries, keeping her head down around older kids who tried to mess with her. One afternoon, Marcus saw a group of boys cornering her outside the center. "Give us your snack money, Jada," one sneered. "I don't got any," she shot back, hugging her books to her chest. "Liar." The boy reached for her bag. Marcus's crutch clicked hard against the sidewalk as he approached. His voice came out low and commanding. "Back off." The boys glanced at him. The limping janitor wasn't much of a threat, but something in his eyes made them think twice. They scattered, with muttered insults. "You okay?" Marcus asked Jada. She nodded, though her jaw was tight. "They do that a lot." "You shouldn't have to deal with that." She shrugged. "It's just the way it is." Those words stuck with him long after she walked away. That night, in his modest apartment, Marcus lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling. He thought about the fortune sitting untouched in his bank accounts, about the penthouse that waited for him whenever he wanted to return. And he thought about Jada, brave, hungry, brilliant Jada, accepting bullying and hunger as just the way it is. For the first time in years, Marcus felt anger burn in his chest. Not at her, but at the unfairness of it all. A week later, the conflict sharpened. He arrived at the center early and found Jada sitting on the steps, shivering in the morning cold. Her eyes were red and her books were clutched to her chest. "Jada, what's wrong?" he asked gently. She sniffed. They posted a paper on our door last night. Said me and Grandma gotta leave. She says it's called an eviction notice." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Why?" "Grandma got sick, missed work, bills piled up. Now they say we owe too much." Her voice cracked. "Where are we supposed to go?" She buried her face in her arms, trying to hide her tears. Marcus sat beside her, ignoring the ache in his ankle. He wanted to tell her everything, that he could pay their rent, buy them a house, change their lives overnight. But he couldn't. Not yet. To reveal himself now would break the disguise he'd built. Instead, he said softly, "Sometimes life knocks us down harder than we think we can handle. But you and your grandma, you're stronger than you know. And you're not alone in this." She looked at him, eyes wet. "What can you do? You're just the janitor." The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. To her, he wasn't a billionaire with power. He was just a man with a mop. And maybe that was why she trusted him enough to cry in front of him. As the rain started again, Marcus made a silent vow. He couldn't stay on the sidelines anymore. Jada and her grandmother were running out of time, and hiding behind his disguise would only let them fall. The question wasn't whether he would step in. The question was how far he was willing to go before revealing the truth. The eviction notice ticked like a bomb in Marcus's mind. Every time he saw Jada at the community center, laughing with friends or bent over her homework, he pictured her sitting on a curb with her grandmother, belongings piled in trash bags. He couldn't let that happen. But the disguise complicated everything. Marcus had come here to learn, to listen, to feel what life was like without billions cushioning every blow. If he swooped in too soon, Jada would see him not as a man, but as a miracle wallet. And something about her spirit made him want more than that. At the center, Jada threw herself into activities with a fierce energy. She was the first on the basketball court, weaving between taller kids with sharp footwork, and the last to leave the tutoring room, scribbling notes by the glow of flickering fluorescent lights. But Marcus noticed cracks. One afternoon, she nodded off at a table, her cheek pressed to an open math book. Miss Ramirez shook her head. "Kids running on fumes," she whispered to Marcus. "Heard her grandma picked up extra shifts, and Jada's been up all night helping her with laundry jobs." Marcus's grip on the broom tightened. A 12-year-old working like a grown woman, he crouched beside Jada, gently nudging her shoulder. "Hey, scholar, time to wake up." She blinked groggily. "Sorry, just tired." "You eat lunch today?" Her silence was answer enough. Marcus limped to the vending machine, bought 2 granola bars and a juice, and placed them in front of her. "Doctor's orders," he said with a wink. She smiled faintly, too tired to argue, and began to eat. That night, Marcus walked the neighborhood, hood pulled low, crutch tapping against uneven sidewalks. He passed shuttered shops, cracked stoops, and flickering streetlights. He saw families sitting on porches despite the cold, their laughter thin but stubborn. This wasn't a place people chose to live. It was a place they survived. And yet in Jada, he saw more hope than he'd seen in boardrooms filled with millionaires. 2 days later, he witnessed her resilience tested again. A commotion erupted outside the center. A boy had snatched another kid's backpack and sprinted down the block. Jada was in the group, and without hesitation, she bolted after him. "Jada!" Marcus shouted, his heart lurching. She was fast, cutting through puddles, beads clicking as she ran. The boy darted into an alley, but Jada wasn't afraid. She caught his sleeve, tugged hard, and the backpack tumbled to the ground. The boy shoved her, hard enough that she fell. Marcus's chest tightened as he limped forward as quickly as his ankle allowed. By the time he reached her, the boy was gone, the backpack still lying in the mud. "You okay?" Marcus asked, kneeling beside her. Jada brushed dirt off her hoodie and picked up the backpack. "Yeah. He was stealing from Malik. He needed his homework for school." Her voice was calm, steady, but her scraped palms told another story. "You're brave," Marcus said. She frowned. "No, I just don't like people taking what little we got." Her words were sharp, cutting through him. That wasn't just about Malik's backpack. That was about eviction notices, bills, and the constant fear of losing everything. Later, when Jada's grandmother arrived, Marcus pulled her aside. "Miss Lillian, about the eviction." Her eyes hardened. "How you know about that?" "Jada told me." Miss Lillian sighed, shoulders slumping. "Shouldn't have burdened her, but she sees everything. Always has." Marcus hesitated. "Is there any help? Assistance programs?" "We've tried. Lists are long, time's short. I'll figure something out." Her voice was firm, but it carried a quiet desperation. Marcus wanted to blurt out the truth. "I could write a check right now that would solve all of this." but the disguise held his tongue. If he revealed himself too soon, Jada might never believe his kindness was real. Still, watching them walk away into the rainy night, Marcus made up his mind. He wouldn't let the storm swallow them. One way or another, he'd step in. The chance came sooner than he expected. The following week, the community center buzzed with tension. A notice had been taped to the front door. Due to funding cuts, programs will be reduced starting next month. Kids crowded around, murmuring. Miss Ramirez looked like she hadn't slept. Marcus overheard her on the phone, voice tight. "We can't keep the doors open every evening. Without donations, we'll have to cut tutoring and meal service." Jada stood nearby, fists clenched. "They can't do that. This place is all some kids have." Her voice cracked, and Marcus realized she wasn't just thinking about some kids. She was thinking about herself. That night, Marcus sat in his rental apartment staring at the ceiling again. He had come here to understand the struggles of ordinary people, but the longer he stayed, the harder it became to remain ordinary himself. He thought about his empire, buildings, businesses, foundations, all humming along without him. And here he was, in a rundown neighborhood, watching a girl fight battles bigger than she should have to carry. The disguise had given him clarity. Now it demanded a choice. If he acted, he risked exposure. If he didn't, Jada and her grandmother would lose everything. And Marcus Ellison was not a man who let people he cared about fall. The eviction notice had a date stamped in bold red letters. October 31st. Marcus saw it when Jada shoved the crumpled paper into her backpack one afternoon. She tried to hide it, but it slipped out as she dug for a pencil. He caught a glimpse of the ugly print, the kind that didn't care about families or futures, just dollars owed. "That's in 3 days," Marcus said quietly. Jada froze, then snatched the paper. "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." She shook her head fiercely. "Grandma says we'll figure it out." Her voice cracked on the word figure, and she turned away so he wouldn't see her eyes watering. Marcus wanted to reach out, to promise it would be okay. Instead, he just said, "You don't always have to carry this alone, you know." "I'm not crying," she muttered, though tears glistened on her cheeks. "I'm just tired." That night, Marcus made a call, not to his financial advisors, not to lawyers, but to a childhood friend named Samuel, who now ran a quiet nonprofit. "Need a favor," Marcus said, keeping his voice low. "Anonymous donation, rent assistance program, 2 people, eviction in 3 days." Samuel didn't ask questions. He never did. "Send me the details. I'll make it happen." Relief surged through Marcus, but it was tangled with something heavier. Guilt. He had the power to erase Jada's struggles with a signature. Yet here he was, hiding behind another man's help. Maybe it was cowardice, or maybe it was the only way to know if kindness mattered more than money. The next morning, Jada showed up to the community center later than usual. Her hoodie was damp, her eyes ringed with shadows. "You okay?" Marcus asked. She shrugged. "Just didn't sleep." He nodded, deciding not to push. Instead, he asked about her math homework. She brightened a little, pulling out her notebook. They worked through problems together, her quick mind catching patterns faster than she realized. "You ever think about being a teacher?" Marcus asked. She wrinkled her nose. "Nah, I want to be a doctor. Grandma says I got steady hands, and doctors don't get evicted." Her bluntness cut through him like glass. That evening, as kids piled into the gym for basketball, Marcus noticed Jada slipping outside. He followed, crutch tapping against the cracked pavement. She sat on the curb, staring at the horizon where the sun bled into orange and purple. "Big day tomorrow," Marcus said, lowering himself beside her. She didn't look at him. "Yeah." For a moment, they sat in silence, the city humming around them. Then she whispered, "What if they throw us out and we got nowhere to go?" Her voice was so small that Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Then we fight back," he said firmly, "together." She turned to him, eyes wide. "Why would you fight with us? You're just you." Marcus smiled faintly. "Because you helped me when I fell, and because nobody gets through this world alone." The next day, Marcus waited anxiously for news from Samuel. His phone buzzed in the middle of his janitor shift. Transfer complete. Rent covered for 6 months. Landlord notified. Marcus exhaled hard, relief flooding him. Jada and her grandmother would have a reprieve, at least for now. He couldn't wait to see her face when she found out. But when Jada arrived that afternoon, she looked pale, shaken. "They still came," she whispered. "The man from the office. Said we owed too much. Said 6 months don't mean nothing if we can't pay after. Marcus's blood went cold. They didn't. They gave Grandma until the end of the week. Jada's voice cracked. Then we're out for real. That night, Marcus stormed into his apartment, pacing like a caged animal. The plan to stay anonymous, to learn quietly, was crumbling. He had tried to play the part of an ordinary man, but ordinary couldn't stop a system that crushed people like Jada every day. He poured a glass of water, stared at it, then slammed it down untouched. Enough. The disguise had served its purpose. But now, it was holding him back from what mattered most, protecting the girl who had protected him when nobody else did. The breaking point came 2 nights later. Marcus was locking up the community center when Jada burst through the doors, her braids flying, her face streaked with tears. They shut off the power, she gasped. Grandma's candles tipped over. We almost had a fire. Marcus's heart clenched. Is she okay? She's fine, but we can't stay there. It's not safe. She collapsed onto a bench, sobbing into her hands. Marcus sat beside her, feeling the weight of his secret pressing down harder than ever. He couldn't hold it anymore. Jada, he said softly, there's something I need to tell you. She looked up, her face streaked with tears. What? Marcus's voice shook, but his resolve was steady. I'm not who you think I am. The community center was quiet, the basketballs put away, the lights dimmed. Only the hum of the vending machine filled the silence as Marcus sat across from Jada. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her shoulders trembling beneath her hoodie. She looked so small, so breakable in that moment, and Marcus knew he couldn't delay the truth any longer. He took a deep breath. My name isn't Mark Ellis, Jada sniffled, frowning. Then who are you? My real name is Marcus Ellison. Her brows knitted. That's supposed to mean something? Marcus hesitated, then leaned forward. I'm one of the wealthiest men in the city. I own buildings, companies, half the skyline you see when you look up. My name's on it. For a moment, Jada just stared at him. Then she laughed, a short, bitter sound. You're joking? You're a janitor. You clean toilets and mop floors. You're not rich. I've been undercover, Marcus said quickly. I wanted to understand what life is really like for people who don't have money. I needed to see it for myself. Jada shook her head, disbelief hardening into anger. So you've been lying this whole time? Playing some kind of game? No, Marcus said firmly. Not a game, a choice. I wanted to be treated like a regular person. And then I met you. You helped me when I fell, when you didn't even know me. That meant more than any deal I've ever made. Jada's eyes shimmered with hurt. If you're really rich, then why didn't you stop the eviction? Why didn't you just fix everything for us? Marcus swallowed hard. Because I didn't want you to see me as a wallet. I wanted you to know me as a man first, someone who cares, not someone who throws money at problems. Her fists clenched in her lap. We don't care about money. We care about a home, about not sleeping in the cold. And you could have helped, but you didn't. Each word struck him like a blow. I tried, Marcus said softly. I sent help anonymously. I didn't want you to feel like you owed me. Well, it didn't work, Jada snapped, her voice breaking. We're still getting kicked out. The room went silent again. Marcus could see her chest rising and falling quickly, her breath shaky. He let the quiet stretch before speaking again. Jada, he said, his voice gentle, I can fix this. Not just for tonight, not just for 6 months, for good. You and your grandmother will never have to worry again, I promise. Her lip quivered, but she glared at him through tears. Why? Why us? You don't even know us. Marcus leaned closer, his voice trembling. Because you showed me something I'd forgotten. That kindness doesn't come with conditions. You helped me when you didn't have to. When I was just some broken-down janitor in an alley. And that changed me. Jada's eyes softened for just a heartbeat, then hardened again. People make promises all the time. They say they'll help, then disappear. Why should I believe you? Marcus hesitated only a moment before pulling out his phone. He opened an article from a financial magazine, his face staring back from the screen in a crisp suit. Because this is me, he said quietly. Jada's eyes widened. She snatched the phone, staring at the picture, then back at him. Back and forth, like she was trying to reconcile 2 versions of the same man. You're really him? She whispered. Yes. Her hands trembled as she handed the phone back. Then you could have saved us this whole time. Marcus's throat tightened. You're right. And I should have. I was so worried about learning some lesson that I let you suffer. I'm sorry, Jada. More sorry than I can say. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she whispered, I don't want your sorry. I want my grandma safe. You'll have that, Marcus said, his voice steady with resolve. I'll make sure of it. The door creaked open, and Miss Lillian stepped inside, her face lined with worry. Jada, what's going on? Jada stood quickly, brushing at her eyes. Grandma, he's not who we thought. He's rich, like, really rich. Miss Lillian's gaze snapped to Marcus. Her eyes narrowed. What kind of joke is this? It's not a joke, Marcus said quietly, rising to his feet. Ma'am, my name is Marcus Ellison. I came here in disguise because I wanted to understand people's struggles firsthand, but I should have been honest sooner. And now, I want to help. Miss Lillian's lips pressed into a thin line. Help comes with strings. Not this time, Marcus said. No strings, just safety, just a home. The older woman studied him for a long, tense moment. Her eyes were sharp, searching, as though she could peel away every lie just by staring. Finally, she sighed, weary. I don't know what to believe, but if you mean what you say, then prove it. I will, Marcus said firmly. Jada's small voice cut through the heavy silence. He says we'll never have to worry again. Miss Lillian pulled her granddaughter close, kissing her hair. Then she looked back at Marcus. Then God help you if you're lying, Mr. Ellison, because this little girl has been let down enough. Marcus nodded. I won't let her down, not ever. As they left the center together, Marcus knew there was no turning back. The disguise was gone, the truth laid bare. Now it was time to keep his promise. The eviction notice never came. By the end of that week, Miss Lillian and Jada no longer packed boxes or whispered about shelters. The locks on their apartment door were replaced with new ones that clicked shut safely. The ceiling no longer dripped when it rained, and the hum of a working refrigerator filled their kitchen for the first time in months. Jada sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the stack of new schoolbooks Marcus had delivered. Grandma, she whispered, we're really staying, for good. Miss Lillian, folding laundry nearby, looked at her granddaughter's wide eyes and felt tears sting her own. Yes, baby, for good. Marcus didn't stop at one apartment. The entire building came alive with change. Peeling paint covered, stairwells lit, heating restored. Tenants who had been weeks from the street now lingered in the hallways with cautious smiles. Some offered handshakes, others skeptical glares. But when Marcus showed up with tools in hand, patching drywall alongside the workers, people began to see him less as a billionaire and more as a man determined to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. One evening, Miss Lillian called him over. Her sharp eyes had softened, though her tone was still measured. You've done more than I ever expected, she admitted. But understand this. Money can fix pipes and pay rent. It can't heal what's broken inside a child when she's been let down too many times. Marcus nodded. I know. That's why I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, not just writing checks. For the first time, Miss Lillian reached for his hand. Then maybe we'll learn to believe you. Jada thrived. She walked to school without fear of coming home to an eviction notice. She joined the debate team, armed with new books Marcus had given her, and shocked teachers with her sharp wit. At night, she still visited the community center, but now she helped younger kids with homework instead of just playing ball. One evening, Marcus found her surrounded by children, explaining fractions with the patience of a teacher twice her age. You're a natural, he said afterward as they walked home. Jada shrugged, grinning. Maybe, but I just want to do what you did, help people so they don't have to worry. Marcus smiled, pride swelling in his chest. And you will, I can already see it. The city skyline glittered, unchanged yet entirely different in Jada's eyes. She stood in the same community center, though now its walls were freshly painted, its programs funded, its halls echoing with laughter instead of silence. She wasn't 12 anymore. She was 22, dressed in a smart blazer, a folder tucked under her arm. On the wall hung a plaque, the Ellison Foundation for Community Growth. Below it, a line etched in brass, inspired by the kindness of strangers, fueled by the courage of one little girl. Jada touched the plaque lightly before turning to face the crowd. Dozens of families filled the chairs, kids squirming in laps, parents whispering with hope. Today she wasn't here to receive help. She was here to announce scholarships, mentorship programs, and housing grants she fought to establish with Marcus's support. When she spoke, her voice carried clear and strong. I grew up in this neighborhood. I know what it's like to worry if you'll have a home tomorrow, or if anyone sees you, or if you even matter. But someone once showed me that kindness can change everything. And now, it's my turn to do the same for you. Applause filled the room. In the back row, Marcus sat quietly, older now, his proud smile hidden behind folded hands. He hadn't wanted the spotlight. This was Jada's moment. As the families pressed forward afterward, Jada slipped away to where Marcus sat. She bent down and hugged him tightly. You kept your promise, she whispered. Marcus shook his head, voice rough with emotion. No, Jada, you kept it. You said one day you'd help people the way I helped you, and look at you now. She pulled back, tears in her eyes but a grin on her face. Guess the world's lucky to have me, huh? Marcus chuckled. Luckier than it knows. They sat together for a moment, watching children run through the hall, children who might never know eviction notices or hunger the way Jada once had. And for both of them, the circle was complete. Thanks for listening. Hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe.